Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 4th edition of Venice City Solutions. I'm Carla Rey. I'm the Secretary General of ICRE, one of the co-organizers of the event. And I'm here with the other colleagues, the other co-organizers, that are UCLG, UNDP, UN Habitat, UN SDGs campaign. So this is our 4th edition, and we have a lot of people not only registered, but also attending the event, and we are very, very happy for this. So let me introduce the colleagues and the friends that are here with me for just a welcome speech to all of you. On my left, I have the Secretary General of UCLG, Emilia Saiz. Emilia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Carla, and welcome, dear friends. It is really an honor to be with you, and it's also a lot of fun. It's an honor because it has been a long time before we have been able to actually sit with each other, see each other, touch each other, and that's a very important part of being human and interacting among ourselves. It is also very important because in these times of crisis, it's very easy to forget the big objectives, what brings us together. Sometimes when you are in this kind of context where difficulties are piling up and you need to tackle many challenges at the same time, decision making tends to be kind of improvised. You pay attention to the short term and you don't have the bigger picture in mind. And the Venice City Solution, this gathering that we convene every year, has the broader picture, the bigger picture, and the long term in mind. It's about getting ready for context for this type of crisis with a longer term thinking. And having fun doing it, because we need to do it from the experience, from the understanding, and from the commitment of communities. This is what I feel as Venice City Solution is, what it represents for my organization, for United Cities and local governments. That is one of the first global organizations that put localization of the Sustainable Development Goals at the heart of its work plan. So every single year we come together with all the relevant actors to discuss how to improve the achievement of that ambitious agenda that we drafted together as humanity in 2015, and that we know as the Sustainable Development Goals. It's an agenda that, from the perspective of our constituency, local and regional governments around the world, cities, big and small, towns, and their associations, remains a perfect framework to work. It has everything we need to tackle crises, also like COVID, to tackle the climate crisis. If we keep the eye on the ball of the Sustainable Development Goals, we can actually achieve transformative experiences, and we can achieve transformative policies that that will change the models that we are using to live in, and that will tackle some of the weaknesses that we have identified during this hard pandemic that is not over yet. So that's why we are very happy to be here with you. And we bring to this gathering not only the experience of the cities, of the communities, which we do. We will see several around these 2 days. But we also bring you the bigger picture, our aspirations, our dreams. And that dream is a dream of a new social contract, a pact for the future, an intergenerational commitment that will tackle people, how people interact with each other, and how people need to be at the center of policies, but also planet, the way we relate to the planet and how the planet needs to be part of our humanity, and government. How do we need to construct institutions that regain trust, a trust that is being lost in these difficult times. Decision making has been confusing. Centralization has sometimes been mistaken with efficiency. Our democracy is in a very soft spot right now. And I think the localization of the SDGs and some of the solutions that are found at local level in our neighborhoods with our communities can be a very important component of this pact for the future that my organization, United Cities and Local Governments, is promoting. So thank you for having us one more year, powering this, this event together with AICRE, with UNDP, with the SDG campaign. Local for action is what we need. Commitment to make things happen from the bottom up. We are delighted to be here with you. You will be hearing more from me, so I will stop here. Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us once again in this global community of actors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emilia. And now I give the floor to Diana Lopez, representing all the 3 United Nations agencies. Diana, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Carla. Well, first of all, local governments are the ones that are making the SDGs a reality for all. This is happening already. If it wasn't for local governments, the SDGs wouldn't have reached where they are now. People wouldn't know about it. People wouldn't see this agenda in their streets, in their lives. So thanks on behalf. Now I'm speaking on behalf of the colleagues of UN Habitat and the SDG campaign that are not able to be here today, and on behalf of UNDP, thank you. First of all. Of course, it was your agenda from the beginning. It was not a extraterrestrial thing that landed in your labs. It was something that the local governments were already doing. But it's true that after 6 years of repeating these messages, we also need to land them in a more concrete way that people see in their streets, in their lives. And now after COVID, people are also listening more because they have spent so much time at home that when they go out in the streets, they see things in a different way. And of course, the city is the perfect physical and territorial space where the SDGs become visible to the citizen. But of course, it's not only about public services, which are essential. And we have spoken about this. It's also the transformational part of what we call the Agenda 2030. So let's say the SDGs are the concrete services that we need, that the citizen deserve. And then we have this spirit of transformation of the Agenda 2030. And that is what now at the SDG campaign we call this flip the script. We cannot do the things as we used to do it because it's not enough. I mean, it takes a lot of effort, and your mayors know how much effort takes to have the streets clean and water coming out of the sinks, but it's not enough. We need to flip the script. We have to think about what is the different way that could be a better way. We need to experiment. It's not easy, but we need to change a little bit the ways as we used to do. And of course, I think that local governments are also doing something amazing, which is taking the SDGs and bringing the sustainability criteria inside the ways that they run the city. They are rethinking the city based on the SDGs. And this is transformational because these sustainability criteria won't leave the public administration once that year 2030 will be over. Because now municipalities are using the SDGs to plan, to budget. They're using it as an instrument and bringing these sustainability criteria like a stream that won't leave the public administration in year 2030-31. So this is a little bit what we are going to talk in these days, how this is entering the core, the body of public administration at local level, and how these cities, in concrete examples, are rethinking the city, rethinking this flip the script with this new way of looking at things. Of course, you know, I repeat this 1,000 times, how important is to communicate the public action, how important is to have the trust, and how SDGs are creating trust, because the citizens see what the municipality do and believe that they are necessary and they are protecting the common good. So let's see what happens in these 2 days, how we get inspired. It's so important. I mean, every year we say, oh my God, now we have to do Venice again. And it's it's a lot of work, but it's true that we come out of these 2 days inspired and with new narratives and new ideas for our common action. So I'm very excited to be here with you. It's super nice to see you again, and let's go. So over to you, Carla. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. And now, just to say that, as my colleagues already have said, to remind you, Venice City Solution is a laboratory, is a place of creation, of innovative solutions that you want to find with all the participants of the venue. Let's say that also we are looking for knowing the different aspects of the different sectors of our society. In Venice City Solution, we have the private sector, we have not only the local governments, the national governments or the institutions that are here with me, but also university, the world of research, the civil society organization. We don't want to leave no one behind in our meetings. So you will see through our agenda that in every session you will find the representation of different points of view that are very worthwhile for our discussion. In a nutshell, we will have 2 days of sessions, 2 sessions today and 2 sessions tomorrow. The idea of this edition is, like Emilia said, to put a very important clue on rethinking the cities. We need to keep this mid-long-term vision, not only the political mandate, but over it, just to support our local authorities in finding the best target, the best urban strategy. So the title is Rethinking the Cities, Finding a Solution Through the SDGs. We will have a first session that was planned to think how we can replan strategically our agenda, being a city looking for the SDGs. So the green session would have been the first action in our debate, to replan, to localize the SDGs in the urban agenda. Then we will move to think how we need to transform the cities, because you know that the urban textile, it's already done. We cannot build from ground zero the cities, but we can change it. We can modify. We can look at what are the new needs of the citizens. And that's the session idea, to rethink, to rechange, to be flexible. Those 2 sessions are in a concept of a spatial, dimension. But then we have the human, the social one that we don't want to forget. So we will have a red session about culture, because we believe that we want to share a new narrative on SDGs values. So that's the important focus that we have to keep in mind if we want a co-creation of the city development with our citizens. Co-creation, co-participation in every aspect of the city life. The last session, after planning, transforming, and sharing the ideals, should be inclusion. We need to be sure that we leave really no one behind. With the inclusion, we need really to make participative any kind of process that we do in the city. And for all these action, SDGs are the solution. And we will listen from not only the voices of the cities, but also the other stakeholders, how we are really convinced, as Diana said, that the SDGs are the perfect tool to achieve achieve the 2030 agenda. So I want really to thank all, but please let me say that Venice City Solution is also the hubs of all the local for action hubs. So a special focus will be dedicated in every session to all our hubs that will be connected with us. So thank you all for participating and co-creating with us this fantastic discussion on the future of the cities. Thank you.
Bueno, pues seguimos aquí desde Venecia con la sesión azul. Les damos siempre colores un poco para darle un poco de alegría y darle también, ligarlos un poco con los colores de los ODS, que son muy atractivos y que la gente entiende, que la gente se siente también identificada con ellos. Y bueno, hemos querido empezar con esta desigualdad, cómo los ODS están cambiando la forma en la que las ciudades consideran las desigualdades y qué están haciendo los municipios para corregir las desigualdades inspirándose en la Agenda 2030. Tenemos una sesión muy larga y tenemos muy poco tiempo, pero sí que vamos a empezar con hemos decidido en esta sesión como concentrarnos en la experiencia de una ciudad para tener un poco más de tiempo, porque vamos siempre corriendo, nunca nos da tiempo a profundizar en argumentos. Y tenemos con nosotros Bogotá, espero que esté en algún sitio, está con nosotros Diana Rodríguez Franco, que es la secretaria de la Mujer en la Alcaldía de Bogotá, en Colombia. Bueno, la hemos invitado, sobre todo de Diana, porque tuvimos una conversación hace unos meses sobre el increíble programa que está llevando a cabo Bogotá de Ciudad de Cuidados, y fue una experiencia que me marcó mucho porque es una forma también concreta en la que el municipio está corrigiendo las desigualdades con una acción concreta, pero también proporcionando un valor añadido a esa acción que están haciendo, que no quiero desvelarlo mucho, por lo que voy a darle la palabra a Diana para que nos cuente un poco qué están haciendo. Y mis preguntas a ella es cómo la ciudad de Bogotá está usando los ODS para corregir desigualdades y qué es este valor añadido que el ayuntamiento proporciona a esta acción que están haciendo en concreto. Hola Diana, ¿qué tal? Qué gusto verte.
Hola Tocaya, hola Diana, ¿cómo estás? Un placer, muchísimas gracias por esta invitación and thank you everyone. Diana, ¿puedo empezar ya? Bueno,
sí, claro, sí.
Perfecto. I will be doing my talk in English. I thought it would probably be more of a global language than switching to Spanish, so I hope it's fine with everyone. So I will start by, thank you so much for this invitation, and I will start by presenting with sharing with you how we are rethinking the city of Bogota and making SDGs a reality, or trying at the most to make SDGs a reality and combating inequality. So today what I'm going to do is share with you the first city level care system in Latin America. And for that end, we will begin with a short video to get everyone's emotions connected. So if we can show the video right now.
Casi desde que uno nace, ya cuando empieza uno a crecer, ya comienza a cuidar, porque mientras uno está en la casa, que cuida a la mamá, que cuida que si tiene hermanos pequeños, pues cuida a los hermanos menores, y ya más grande, pues pasa uno a cuidar los propios hijos de uno, los nietos. Entonces yo creo que casi toda la vida uno ha sido cuidador.
Yo era una persona que trabajaba, tenía un trabajo en una buena empresa, pero nació mi hija con una discapacidad múltiple y mi proyecto de vida pues iba aquí, mi proyecto de vida pasó acá. No pude seguir mis estudios, no pude graduarme como enfermera, que era lo que estaba estudiando.
Realmente son muchos sacrificios porque la dedicación es bastante grande a la casa, a la mamá, porque como ella no puede moverse, no puede hacer nada, entonces tiene que estar uno muy pendiente de ella.
Renuncié prácticamente a todo porque no podía yo salir a ningún lado, no podía venir a ninguna actividad porque el tiempo me absorbía totalmente.
Yo tengo 32 años, yo tuve a mi hijo en el 2007 y estaba estudiando y me tocó dejarlo.
Si yo tuviera mis tiempos libres, pues me gustaría irme, por ejemplo, a un parque para yo poder tomarme un espacio para mí.
So I wanted to start with this video because the care work overload that the women in this video face is the reality of millions of low-income women in Bogota and around the world, and especially in middle and low-income countries. And these women have no time left to engage in educational, political, or self-care activities, which means we are leaving women behind if we don't address the unpaid care burden. So if we can now show the presentation, I will take you really quickly through our solution. How is Bogota trying to rethink care and trying to make care, trying to argue that we can restructure cities around care economies, and that is a concrete solution to address the SDGs. How big is this problem? Why are we talking about this? How many women are in the situation of the video you just saw? And Bogota, to give you an idea, has a population of 8 million people. Over 50% of them are women, and 9 out of 10 carry out some sort of unpaid care work. These women devote an average of 5.5 hours daily to unpaid care work, which is both housework and unpaid care work, which represents 3 more hours in average than men. And with the pandemic and the ensuing closure of schools and daycares and elderly homes, the situation worsened. And today, 30% of Bogota's female population, which means 1.2 million women, devote their time mainly or exclusively to unpaid care work. So of those 8 million, 15% of Bogota's population is devoted exclusively to unpaid care work, with an average of 10 hours dedicated to these tasks per day. And this burden has enormous consequences. 70% of those 1.2 million women have not studied beyond high school. 21% of them suffer from both mental and physical health problems. Just to give you an idea, this care burden, unpaid care burden, is so big that if it were paid, it would represent 13% of Bogota's GDP or 20% of the country's GDP. So despite the economic and social importance of care work, despite being the pillar on which all societies and cities rest, it has been historically unpaid, unseen, and undervalued. And so perhaps more importantly that it being not recognized is the fact that it limits women's possibilities of professional development and political participation. It enhances economic dependency. It dampers self-care, and it deepens inequality at home and beyond. So to avoid that taking care of others results in neglecting their own lives and fostering economic dependency and inequality, the administration of Claudia Lopez, the first woman elected mayor of the city of Bogota, designed and launched the care system. So what is it? Next, please. The care system, which in Spanish is called Sistema Distrital de Cuidado, what it does is it articulates services to address the high care demands in a shared responsible manner between the city government, the national government, the private sector, communities, and households, with 3 objectives, or ultimately with 1 objective, and it's for caregivers to have time to pursue what they're putting aside. And in a broader scale, it aims to recognize the contribution of caregivers. It's very common still in Colombia and in Latin America for people to ask, what does your mom do? Oh no, she doesn't do anything. She's always at home and she doesn't do anything. And when you ask, what does she do? What does she? Well, she cares for children, she cares for the elderly, she cares for people with disabilities, she cooks, but we still answer, no, she doesn't do anything. She's always at home. So we need to start by recognizing care and the pillar of care and the contribution of caregivers. Second, redistribute responsibility more equitably between women and men, and ultimately reduce that unpaid care burden. And how do we do that? Next, please. The care system has 3 beneficiaries. If we could go back to the previous one. First, caregivers. And for caregivers, both men and women, but they're mostly women, we offer 2 types of services: education and well-being. Why? Because those are the 2 things that caregivers have said, I've left behind, I've left aside due to care. So they can finish high school in a flexible manner. They can get professional certifications that recognize that they can work as caregivers, and they can continue with more technical studies and advanced studies. Also, and they have more other services like finance courses and other things they can engage in for their autonomy. Also, well-being activities, like what? Learning how to ride a bike. We have bike school for women, learning how to swim, and also having access to legal aid and free psychological aid. That's for caregivers. But at the same time, and that's the essence of this all, we provide in a similar space services for people they care for: children under 5, the elderly, and persons with disability, notably professional care and playful activities. And there's also a 3rd group of beneficiaries, which are caregivers' families, notably men, because we have care school for men. We need to learn how to care. So men can learn how to give a bottle, how to nurse, how to take care, how to cook, how to iron, how to wash clothes, because we can all learn to care, and women were not born learning to care. How does this operate? Next, please. This operates, next slide, please. Thank you. It operates through 3 ways: through what we have called care blocks, care buses, or door-to-door care services. In all of these services, we simultaneously provide services for those who provide care and for those who require care. So for example, a caregiver can enroll in a program to finish high school, while at the same time in a close vicinity, her grandchild can participate in playful activities, or her son with disabilities in some physical activity. So how does this operate? What are care blocks, care buses, and door-to-door? Care blocks are physical spaces that put together several services in a distinct area. So we put all the services in the same building or in a few blocks, not for them to be located in different spaces throughout the city. So those are care blocks. Next, please. This is, for example, a picture of a care block where women are learning how to ride a bike while their children or people they care for are in playful activities right there close by. Next, please. We also have care buses, because care blocks imply that women go to these places, and that there's some infrastructure. But there's also areas of the city that lack enough infrastructure for us to start care blocks. So we put in place care buses. Care buses are the mobile version of care blocks. They go, for instance, to the rural areas, as the one you see in the picture, or to urban areas that lack infrastructure. Next. That's a picture of a care bus inside. We have in the center, we have this classroom where women can learn, finish their high school and learn other courses. At the back end of the bus, we have a physician who checks up for women's health. And at the beginning, at the front end of the bus, we have a special office for free psychological and legal aid. Next. And in the meantime, while women are on the bus, we have these big tents, inflatable tents, where we take care of those people they take care for. So in this picture, for instance, there's children that are engaged in art and playful activities, so caregivers can be investing time in themselves. And I'm quickly going to move on. Diana, should I wrap up right now? Perfect.
Yes.
So why is this? I think the care system addresses the historical and equal distribution of care work. It also ensures long-term and sustainable change. It helps us contribute to the creation of the 15-minute city or the 30-minute city. And ultimately, it provides well-being. So my invitation here is, I invite you all together. Why don't we rethink whether and how we can plan cities around care economies? Because we think it could be a solution to address and reach our SDGs by 2030. And up to now, just to give you an idea, we have 7 care blocks and 2 care buses in place, and we have offered close to 54,000 services. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diana. I mean, this is really SDG 5 in motion, but in motion like real motion, like with wheels. Because you are taking the SDG 5 to the people, to the door of the people, which I really like of your project. Is this is not only, it's in terms of the market, you are providing this added value because I have time, and this time could be dispersed, but you are bringing these people together and giving an added value to this time of these women, of these carers. So it's really very interesting. I'm going to give the floor to the respondents. So we have asked the respondents to briefly comment what the institutions are doing in terms of reducing inequalities and how the SDGs are inspiring them to reduce inequalities, but also to make you a follow-up question, to ask Bogotá what they want to know more. So they're going to be moderators as well of the event. So in the first place, we have Pilar Díaz. She's the deputy of the presidency of the province of Barcelona and also the delegate for international relations. And Pilar, please ask if you can ask a follow-up question to Bogotá and then tell us how the province of Barcelona, and of course you are a mayor of Esplugues de Llobregat, so how are you also addressing inequalities? Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I prefer to speak in Spanish. I think it's not a problem. En este caso, pues muchísimas gracias por la oportunidad de participar en este espacio, pudiendo representar también el Local for Action Hub de la Diputación de Barcelona y sobre todo encantada de escuchar las propuestas que nos llegan en este caso de Bogotá, que nos ha explicado Diana, que son muy interesantes y que siempre nos inspiran muchísimo. Solamente un pequeño dato, aquí en el año 2006, a finales de 2006, en España se aprobó la que conocemos como la Ley de la Dependencia, que no solamente piensa que es muy importante en las personas cuidadoras, también pues, en las personas que necesitan cuidados. Y bueno, el despliegue yo creo que ha sido satisfactorio, todo y que tenemos que identificar los problemas que nos pueden permitir poder ir un poquito más allá. La verdad es que estamos en un momento, 15 años después y en medio de una pandemia, pues tenemos que repensar muchas cosas, pero bueno, todo esto al final se tiene que localizar y tiene que acabar en las ciudades, en los municipios, donde, como habéis dicho al inicio, pues la verdad es que si hemos trabajado de una manera muy entusiasta en pro de poder conseguir los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible de la Agenda 2030, pues efectivamente, como siempre, hemos sido los municipios los que tiramos del carro, ¿no? En circunstancias normales, en este momento, pues no podría compartir este espacio porque precisamente durante estos días, esta semana, deberíamos estar con una delegación de alcaldesas y de mujeres electas de la provincia de Barcelona, incluida la presidenta de la Diputación, en un viaje a Marrakech, en el marco del proyecto Equalmet, que seguramente conoceréis porque en alguna ocasión hemos explicado, para poder debatir y analizar conjuntamente el empoderamiento político de las mujeres, que es un tema que nos interesa, además de todo el tema de las curas y de los cuidados que estábamos hablando. El objetivo de este espacio digo era porque no lo hemos podido hacer, pero lo haremos sin ninguna duda, era compartir con nuestras colegas y vecinas marroquíes cuál es la situación de las mujeres electas y a qué retos nos enfrentamos para desarrollar nuestra tarea en el mundo de hoy. Y uno de ellos, y muy importante, es precisamente poder compaginar los cuidados de nuestro entorno con la vida profesional y poner en valor esa tarea oculta que no se pone en valor de manera suficiente y sobre todo a nivel social, no se pone en valor. Bueno, pues gracias a que no he podido ir, esta mañana una parte de mi tiempo, que no tenía la agenda tan llena como otras veces porque tenía que estar de viaje, la he podido dedicar a una parte de curas. Tengo padres muy, muy mayores, con una dependencia muy acelerada y mi padre con una anemia muy grande. Bueno, pues ahí hemos estado en urgencias con él. Y lo explico porque creo que es importante que expliquemos no solamente cuando participamos en eventos como este, que son necesarios, que nos ayudan a aprender mutuamente, sino porque si queremos darle el valor social que se merece, pues muchas veces tendremos que explicar que parte de nuestra agenda es para tomar decisiones importantes y para tirar adelante políticas que pretenden no dejar a nadie atrás, pero de la misma manera que también que tenemos que dedicar parte de nuestras horas pues, a cuidar de nuestros hijos y de nuestras hijas, a cuidar de las personas dependientes que tenemos en la familia o de nuestros padres mayores, que en muchas ocasiones pues, es lo que pasa cuando son tan longevos, que puedan ser cuidados por sus hijos.
Le vamos a pedir a Bogotá que te mande el autobús para que puedas hacer de alcaldesa. Pero bueno, como desde Bogotá es un poco...
A mis padres. Creo que es mi obligación hacer...
No es sostenible mandar el autobús desde Bogotá. Le pediremos a Emilia, que está más cerca yo en Barcelona, que mande un autobús para las alcaldesas para que puedan ocuparse. ¿Tienes alguna pregunta para Diana directamente sobre este proyecto? Gracias.
Tengo una pregunta, exacto. Y en este caso, la pregunta que tenemos es las medidas que tienen para poder afianzar la paridad en las tareas de cuidados, si tienen algún impacto en el número de mujeres que ocupan cargos políticos. De la misma manera que nosotros hemos estado trabajando desde la Diputación para también poner este tema en la agenda con las electas marroquíes, nos interesa también saber mucho cómo quieren abordar con esas medidas para afianzar esa paridad en esas tareas de los cuidados que yo os explicaba con un ejemplo personal que he tenido que vivir hoy. Y me gustaría interesarme sobre la metodología que utiliza Bogotá para recoger y procesar datos tan cualitativos y sensibles sobre la situación de las mujeres. El hecho de tener un observatorio, el hecho de tener datos, de poder cuantificar, pensamos que es un elemento básico para establecer medidas correctoras adecuadas para poder abordar este tema. Esos serían las preguntas.
Pilar, un placer y muchas gracias. If it's all right, I will switch to English because I'm seeing in the chat that they're asking, please speak English, so I will do so. So first, with regard to, are we seeing some impact of these services in the possibility of more women occupying public service and being in political positions of power and in political positions? And I think it's too soon to say. This system has been in place for a year. What we are doing is that simultaneously, as part of the system, we have what we're calling a parity clinic. So we're training more women, but in a more practical way to engage in politics. So not the traditional course in which we sit for hours and hours and learn, but a more practical course. How do we use the social media? How do we design a slogan? How do we design a campaign? How do we speak in public? And for women who want to engage in this course, we offer the possibility of taking care of the people they care for in the care blocks so they can actually attend the course and have time for themselves. So that's regarding question number one, because we do think that the care burden, we often think about it in the lack of economic autonomy, but it also translates into a lack of political participation. And we constantly make that link. And it also, so right now, also, whenever they ask us, what is the Secretary for Women doing for the reactivation and the economic reactivation of the city? We say, there's other secretaries doing specific things, like the Secretary for Economic Development, but redistributing care is a precondition for economic recovery and for political participation. If women just have this care burden, it's very difficult to access jobs or to participate politically. That's with regard to question number one. And with regard to question number two about data, I couldn't agree more with you. We need to make this visible. Luckily, in Colombia, we have information regarding the use of time. So time surveys are key for cities and countries to be able to show the lack of redistribution, the care burden, and thus the solutions, and also for us to be able to be critical about the program and see its long-term impact.
And measure them, and I think this is what I like really very much of the experience of Bogota, is this very practical experience about you free the time of women, and then you give women something to do with that time. I'm going to open the floor now for Emilio Rabasco, who is joining us from Andalusia. He's the director of FAMSI, the Municipal Fund for International Solidarity. Emilio, are you there? Yes, here you are. Hola, Emilio. So sí, again, the same question. Hola. The same question, how is FAMSI addressing inequalities? How are you trying to solve this problem? And then if you can do a follow-up question to the Bogota experience. Over to you.
Bueno, muchas gracias a ICRE, a todos los organizadores, a CGLU y a la Agencia de Naciones Unidas. Muchas gracias también a Diana por su presentación, no solo clara, sino muy apasionada con la temática, y se agradece y lo transmite ese programa que ha contado. Bueno, FAMSI es una red de gobiernos locales y como tal, una red de gobiernos locales que trabajan en temáticas de cooperación. Para nosotros, que estamos en una región como Andalucía, muchos de los que están aquí lo entenderán, Andalucía, toda la política de cohesión de la Unión Europea se ha basado tradicionalmente en la reducción de desigualdades y en la cohesión territorial. Y fíjate que la Unión Europea ha mirado a la región, a los territorios como las claves para la reducción de estas desigualdades. Nosotros, desde un territorio también como Andalucía, en base a nuestros gobiernos locales y provinciales, pensamos que los servicios públicos, garantizar los servicios públicos a la población, y en un contexto también español muy descentralizado, con muchas competencias locales y provinciales, es un medio fundamental para la consecución de la Agenda 2030 y para la reducción de desigualdades en general, ¿no? En todo ese contexto y en el trabajo nuestro de cooperación desde hace muchos años, nos planteamos que precisamente en un contexto no ahora vinculado al COVID, que ha sido otro momento fundamental, pero en los años anteriores de privatización sistemática de los servicios públicos, tendríamos que acometer el reto de favorecer, de defender los servicios públicos en nuestro contexto de cooperación y hacerlo desde lo que mejor sabemos hacer, que son nuestros trabajos municipales, nuestra competencia municipal, y poner en red a todos los agentes, a las ciudades, a los aliados internacionales, que estamos con una mirada muy territorial y con un compromiso sobre los servicios públicos en nuestro territorio. Sabemos que esto es clave si queremos lograr la reducción de desigualdades, ¿no? Y estoy hablando de temáticas, y puedo enumerar, ¿no? No solo de las clásicas de los servicios básicos como agua o saneamiento, o como gestión de residuos, como transporte, como energía. Si hablamos ahora de energía y de pobreza energética, las desigualdades que se están dando son gravísimas, y hay experiencias municipales en Barcelona con la empresa pública municipal de energía, o en Cádiz con la empresa pública municipal de energía, experiencias no siempre exitosas, pero que tratan de dar una respuesta desde lo público a esa reducción de desigualdades. Vivienda, que es un tema fundamental y que muchas ciudades, como sabéis, tienen programas específicos y agencias públicas para viviendas municipales, pero también servicios sociales o comunitarios, bienestar social, que ha comentado, por ejemplo, Diana, ¿no? Institutos provinciales que promueven también los servicios sociales comunitarios. Si hablamos de este tema y hablamos de la ley de dependencia en España, por ejemplo, y uniendo a lo que ha hablado Diana, para nosotros en los entornos rurales es fundamental, por ejemplo, la economía de los cuidados y el empleo remunerado también que genera en estos territorios. Para muchas mujeres y para muchas familias es la única fuente de ingresos y garantía de que la población se asienta en el territorio. Y esto se puede acometer desde diferentes miradas, desde la privatización de estos servicios o desde la generación de entes públicos que gestionen estos servicios públicos comunitarios o esta economía del cuidado a través de la financiación que existe.
Emilio, ¿cuál sería entonces tu pregunta para Bogotá? ¿Cuál sería tu pregunta?
Mi pregunta, y por eso quería ir con los servicios públicos, es la mirada de Bogotá sobre los servicios públicos municipales. Más allá del programa concreto que has comentado, Diana, ¿cuál es vuestra mirada y cuál es también vuestro potencial de intercambio con otras ciudades para ponerlo en el marco de nuestro hub de CGLU de servicios públicos y animar la comunidad de intercambio también y de defensa de servicios públicos? Muchas gracias.
Emilio, muchísimas gracias. Yo creo que el tema de los servicios públicos municipales es vital. De hecho, en la comprensión de todo el sistema de cuidado, porque yo acá me estoy refiriendo a servicios públicos, supongo que nos estamos refiriendo a luz, agua, esos servicios públicos esenciales. Sí, ¿verdad? Perfecto. Los hemos visto como una precondición. De hecho, hemos dicho, mire, por ejemplo, lo que pasa en la zona rural de Bogotá, donde la ausencia de servicios públicos hace que las sobrecargas de cuidado sean aún más agudas. Entonces, hemos justamente tratado de conectar, que esto no son cosas separadas. Eso por un lado. Entonces, un aumento de los servicios públicos y una mayor distribución de los mismos. Entonces, por ejemplo, Bogotá en este momento está discutiendo su plan de ordenamiento territorial, el plan para los próximos, hasta 2035 en la ciudad. Y hemos decidido incluir el sistema de cuidado en el plan de ordenamiento territorial, planeando 45 manzanas del cuidado en el plan de ordenamiento territorial. ¿Para qué? Entre otras, para llegar a las zonas más desprovistas de servicios públicos, de infraestructura, a través de los servicios de cuidado y en conexión. Que sirva como un aglutinador el cuidado, que sirva como un organizador común. Eso. Y el potencial de intercambio, bienvenido sea. Hemos tenido llamadas de Monterrey, de Monterrey en México, de República Dominicana, de Buenos Aires y del Ministerio de la Mujer y de Igualdad en Chile. Felices de hablar, felices de ver qué no estamos viendo, cómo podemos contribuir y si el modelo sirve, lo entregamos completo.
Thank you very much, Diana. I see that Emilia, it's a little bit like moving herself in the chair, because what Emilio mentioned was something that comes from the 19th centuries, how the public services are correcting the inequalities in the market. There is the market and the city is a market. And what Bogotá is doing is correcting that market that is not working properly. It should work, but it doesn't. And then the public sector needs to intervene. And this is what we have been doing for public services, for the last 100 years. And maybe we should really have to rethink this Keynes that gave us this idea already, I think 150 years ago. And Emilia, what is your take on these issues?
Well, thank you very much, both Dianas, for the intervention. Thank you for to Bogota for the inspiring presentation. It is truly amazing. But also thank you to the Diputación de Barcelona, the province of Barcelona, and to FAMSI for their experiences. I have one comment and two questions. And the one comment is that what you are showing here is the embryonic possibility of moving from service provision to care provision. It's a change of model. It's a model that does no longer consider that the market needs to respond, but that attributes the public sector not only with a different type of responsibility, but with a different type of vision. And I think that that's what Bogota is doing. Bogota is putting care not only as a concept of society, but also as an spatial cohesion and a physical approach to everything that they do. It is the demonstration that the type of patriarchal models that have been the backbone of our societies can be shifted, and that care needs to be at the center of everything. And I am sure we will hear a lot of this in the upcoming sessions. But I think it is very critical for us to realize this shift from public service provision to care provision. And in that sense, new services, new essentials need to be discovered. Are the buses a new essential service? Yes or no? Together with water, together with time, the creation of time. Is that what we're thinking about? And is the new type of localization that we need to face, the reinvention, including this or not? And here come the questions, which are for Bogota, but also for Esplugues and also for FAMSI. What are you identifying as the new essentials? And are some of the temporary services that you provided during COVID becoming permanent in your experience? Is that part and parcel of the care society you are promoting?
Diana, over to you.
Milia, thank you so much. I was taking notes because I think as you framed it is perfect. It's beautiful. You've nailed the essence of it. That's exactly what we're trying to do. And it's placing care at the center of organizing, planning a city. And so in our master urban development plan, we've decided that it's the environmental structure and the care economy, the care needs, which are the two main big defining structures of what cities should plan themselves around. And it's true, we're trying to move from the provision of services to the provision of care, which also implies thinking of new citizens, if I may use this term, in the sense of we're putting caregivers at the center. Cities have always planned around those who need care. We think of daycares, we think of spaces for the elderly, for people with disabilities. And of course that is essential, please don't take me wrong. But there's always the idea behind that someone can take that person to the daycare, to the elderly home, and also invest a lot of money in going from one place to the other. So we've switched it around and we said, what if we put caregivers at the center? What does that imply? At what time should services be offered? Where should they be offered? What do we need for caregivers to actually access those services? Because we see that it's very common. It's notably women who say, I had this job, but I couldn't take it because the care service was on the other end of the city. Or I had this opportunity to study, but it was so far away from the elderly home that I couldn't manage both things. So what we're doing is, what can we do to organize a city for those both ends to be compatible, for caregivers and for those who require care? And what have we identified as the new essentials, and are new services being permanent? Yes, new services are being permanent. One of them, flexible education. We need for women to finish high school, but we need to do it in a flexible manner. the regular hours we think about, right? The 9 to 5. Usually we have to start we're divided between, we either do this or we do this. So we have to do some sort of flexible services. We need to think, when is it a good time for women when they're 50 years old to finish high school? Because that's who we're talking about. That's one. Second, we also need to think of what basic services we've always left behind. Learning how to ride a bike. Things which we say, does that really make a difference? It does. It does make a difference for autonomy. It does make a difference for sustainable cities. So we cannot tell everyone, use a bike, more sustainable cities, if we don't stop and think what we need to do. And in the same sense, we need to bring in men as our partners. So that's why there's Care School for Men, because we cannot ask them to redistribute care when culturally the division of labor along sex angles has been historically giving care to women. We need to bring them in. We need to show them what they've been missing out on for not redistributing care. And we need to give the possibility to learn. So those have become essential spaces.
I see where this is going because I see her coming already. Emilia, I see her coming from a distance. So now it's, she's always saying, no, local governments are not only service providers. They are not, we are something else. So yes, but now it's okay. The service is something you have to do because the law tells you have to provide these services. But now this caring is something that you want to do. It's not something that you are compelled to do. It's something that the local governments do because they put this caring into the people, and that is a new connection with the citizens. I'm not just the mayor and I need to service you. I want to do it because I care.
You are not only an implementer, but you are actually a political actor that is triggering transformation. That's what we're talking about.
And if I may, we believe that care and making care a common issue over which the national governments, the local governments, the private sector, households, communities, we can all talk about one common issue. This is because it's a shared responsibility, because all of us here have been cared for and all of us will have to care. What Pilar was explaining will eventually happen to all of us. So I think care can be a more common ground than who provides what, and it's what shared responsibility do we have.
I'm a little scared for our poor next speaker because our next speaker really is finding herself in this very exciting conversation. So I'm going to give the floor, if she's online, to Camila Cociña. She's a research fellow on knowledge in action for urban equality, at the Bartlett Development Planning Unit. Here you are, at the University College of London. So Camila, same question. How are you seeing this addressing inequalities? How are the SDGs inspiring your action? And what is your question for Bogota? Over to you, Camila.
Thank you, Diana. And thank you, both Dianas, actually, for inviting us to such an interesting debate. And it's inspiring, it's not scary, entering at the debate after this fascinating exchange. So just a bit of context, I'm a researcher at UCL, as Diana just said, but I also work in the next gold report with the UCLG team, the next gold report that is actually focusing on pathways for urban and territorial equality. So what I'm gonna try to share here is like moving the discussion to the question of vision somehow that Emilia was referring to, and maybe asking some questions to Diana in that direction. So a bit of context, we have been producing this report for the last couple of years, and we have identified a series of what we call pathways that local and regional governments can undertake to advance equality, that understanding equality as a central aspect of the SDGs and the path for the future of UCLG. So I'm not going to go in detail about the content of the report, but we are including here pathways that relate to how local and regional governments can advance on actions that towards commoning the city, towards connecting the city, towards renaturing, towards prospering, towards democratizing, and also, and very centrally, pathways towards caring, also how local and regional governments can care and advance towards urban equality through caring. So I'm very fascinated to hear Bogota's experience as such a concrete experience in that direction. So we are now approaching kind of the final stage of the report. And what I want to share with you today is an exploration of the kind of what the different pathways towards that city that cares, no? How they have become a fundamental condition to address inequality, and how when looking at all these different messages that are emerging from our work, we have found that local and regional governments should consider some dimensions and some key visions when building those pathways. So I'm going to share with you this kind of 5 main things that are starting to emerge, and maybe my questions for Diana is going to be to what extent those principles may be useful for Bogota and for your actions. So the first one, and it may sound obvious, but the fact that local and regional governments pathway must have a focus on human rights, no? And human rights for an intersectional perspective, which means adopting rights-based approaches that recognize the diversity of identities and claims and the kind of structural drivers behind those processes of discrimination, of violence and exclusion towards certain groups. So for instance, towards racialized, migrant or uneducated women that tend to carry the burden of care tasks, how can we look at the role in the cities from a human rights perspective? The second one has to do that the fact that the pathways that local and regional governments build need to rely on a new culture of urban governance, no? A new culture of governance that promote capabilities within local governance that are able to deal with these complexities, no? And this implies particularly to strengthen participation and democratic mechanisms, but also to create the conditions within local and regional governments that promote that kind of deprivatization and the rise of non-speculative ways of city making, the recognition and repair that Diana was talking about. So in the case of questions about care, for instance, how governance structures have the capacities and the structures that recognize that usually invisible, not materialized labors of caring, that I think Bogota is a great example of how to move in that direction. The third one is about reframing the relationship with finance and more widely with the resources of the city. How do we recognize the diversity of urban resources, such as the human and social resources that can be mobilized to support and advance pathways to equality? And for instance, recognizing those already existing solidarity and care community networks as a resource of the city, but also as an entity that needs financial support from the city. So it's putting the care question as part of the financing and research question. The fourth element, it has to do with pathways to equality, need to engage with the notion of time. And the notion of time here, at least in 2 ways. So one, recognizing kind of the historical trajectories that shape and inform the current inequalities. And that means histories of oppression, of coloniality, and that need to active processes of reparation many times, but also recognizing the kind of incremental nature of the interventions that the local and regional governments are making, and visualizing how these small actions build up over time in a way that eventually will reach a tipping point that will achieve a structural change. And for instance, supporting this ecosystem of caring activities that have been historically recognized may create a critical mass that actually shift the social contract around the economy of care, with implication for those who receive care and for those who provide care. And finally, and with this I'm going to finish, the fifth kind of element of these pathways have to do with questions of equality, need to put space and territories and locality as a central dimension. So reinforcing the importance of proximity and the asset that local and regional governments have acting from the proximity in the provisions of service, but also in the design of interventions in urban planning, engaging with the importance of how they engage with other scales. So again, for care, this means reinforcing urban interventions and that facilitate the provision of services at the local neighborhood in compact ways. And the cases of the care blocks that Bogota was presented is a great example. So just not to expand my reflections too much, I think it would be great to hear from Diana, like from this systemic perspective, how they are seeing like Bogota Care program can be mainstream in all these other aspects of local governance, such as education, health, or even housing. How it's like it becomes a vision in a way that is not just about like one specific program, but start kind of penetrating the way in which local and regional governments relate with territories. But thank you again for such a fascinating experience.
Camila, thank you for your elements and for your questions. And I would be happy to talk also beyond this talk. Furthermore, what do you see? What are we not seeing? And I think your elements fit in beautifully. That is it. I probably think of three just to address because of time. So I think it's the fourth element. You said engage with the notion of time. I think that is a key variable that cities have to bring into consideration, not as a consequence of other things, but as a key determining variable for everything, to address economic inequality, to address gender inequality, and so forth. And so time, I think time poverty is really the structural cause of, I would say, one of the main structural causes of inequality in general. Time poverty, we can think of it, the case of women is very clear, but it's also in general the case of the lack of time for people to engage in well-being activities determines the well-being of a city, its health, its longevity, everything. So putting time poverty as a variable, if cities measure and bring into their variables and into their constant measure, what is the time poverty of our citizens? And we start thinking not only for women, but in general, I think we can work together more articulately to address it and to really rethink and make better cities. Second, you talked about the key concept, proximity. In a city like Bogota, in a city like with 8 million people, more chaotic, right? We need to put things closer together because if we aim to address environmental sustainability and the climate crisis, well, care services should be closer together. If we actually want to address economic inequality, the poorest people cannot continue to spend as much as they do in transportation and taking people from one end to the other and so forth. So thinking at the local, thinking at the district level or the whatever division we have within cities, more closer to people, I think that's a key variable, proximity. And that's in fact the term we've used, the variable we've used in creating, as you mentioned, the care blocks. And I think one general thing you were talking, does this address also, is it a way to approach education and housing and others? We believe hopefully that putting care can help us go beyond the silo way of cities operating. It's very common for cities to operate in silos. So the education department operates on one end, the housing department on another, the homeless division on another, the women's affairs department. But we're trying to put care as a common ground. And maybe we can make also more efficient cities.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. In Venice, we always want to bring together all sectors. So we had a voice from academia. Thank you, Camila. And now we have two voices more. One is more from the pure private sector, even if he's going to tell me that he's not really pure private sector. And then we will have a representative from civil society. So maybe I'm going to give them the floor both together, so in matters of time. So first, I want to give the floor to Stefano Vitali. He's a Sustainable Finance Advisory Director at Unicredit Bank. Is he online? Yeah, over to you, Stefano.
Hello.
Ciao.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Diana. Thanks for having me here. Do you want to give the floor also to the ad participant, or shall I kick off?
No, go ahead. I will put together your question to Bogota and the one from Massimo together, so we can wrap it up. But please go ahead, Stefano. All yours.
Okay. No, thank you very much. I have to say, I feel very, very lucky because my job is actually to focus on sustainability and sustainable topics in the finance world, right? And the most interesting part of it is that I get a front row seat in discussions revolving around the SDGs with all of my clients. And until now, one of the major topics of discussion that we put on the table is actually climate change, right, along with the energy transition and the overall decarbonization of the economy. However, most recently, some of the companies I talked to have actually expanded their focus towards other key sustainability topics, such as gender gap and social inequalities, as they now understand that addressing these issues can actually help them mitigating their climate footprint, all right? Because while preparing for this panel, I actually came across multiple research suggesting that there is a direct correlation between the reduction of the gender gap and a country's ability to effectively address climate change. So, for example, some studies show that countries with more female leadership generally have more robust climate policies and stricter carbon emission standards, right? Which in my mind ultimately means that addressing social inequalities at every level of society will make it easier for everybody then to tackle the challenges of climate change. And as presented by Diana before, one effective way, of course, of reducing social inequalities is through concrete actions taken by the local governments and through the creation of a supportive regulatory environment. However, and given the urgency of these matters, I think that we actually need to take advantage also of all the tools that are at our disposal here, in the sense that it is also important to directly engage with corporates and financial actors, as they can also play a central role in helping out in solving these issues. This is why today I would like to bring to you a really concrete example on how banks like UniCredit and their clients are actually working towards the introduction of positive social and environmental externalities when we, let's say, create these financing solutions. But in a nutshell, how do we leverage, right, on sustainable finance solutions to actually improve the gender gap, for example, in communities around the world? Well, we took up this challenge at the beginning of this year with the Spanish utility company Iberdrola, for whom we structured a 2.5 billion euro credit facility, which is linked to two sustainable targets, namely gender equality and climate action. And to give you some background, the general idea behind a traditional SDG-linked financial instrument is that if a company is able to achieve its sustainable goals, then the banks involved in the transaction will reward the company with a discount on the cost of the financing. Well, if the company is not able to achieve its goals, then the company will correspond to the banks an equivalent additional payment. And this economic incentive, you see, is designed to actually encourage the company to ultimately achieve these sustainable goals. However, and this is the interesting part, I think, what we did with Iberdrola is to actually introduce a novel concept to this overall structure. And the concept is that Iberdrola and the banks in this transaction have actually agreed to donate the economic incentive towards sustainable projects. So irrespective of Iberdrola's performance on these specific goals, there is going to be an annual donation which will be made towards sustainable projects, which are designed to support, for example, gender equality in the municipalities where the company is operating. And the projects which are currently being identified by UniCredit, by Iberdrola, will directly contribute to the SDGs the instrument is linked to, which is what makes this initiative so interesting in my mind. It is sort of a circular approach to the SDGs, if you will. So Iberdrola's goals, they contribute to the SDG 5 and the SDG 13, right? And if Iberdrola is successful in achieving these goals, then you can already see a positive benefit, which will be further improved, right, by the fact that these projects that Iberdrola is selecting will also receive a donation, thus creating further, let's say, externalities and further benefits towards the achievement of the SDGs. But if Iberdrola is then not able to achieve these goals, the projects will still receive the donation anyway, and will nonetheless deliver some of these positive benefits, right? So in the end, in my mind, it's a win-win situation, however you look at it. So to conclude, because I'm conscious of time, I have two main takeaways for you. So bridging the gender gap and addressing inequalities, in my mind, will accelerate and enhance our ability at a global level to also fight climate change. And ultimately, Iberdrola is only one of many examples of how companies and banks are increasingly taking ownership of their social and environmental footprint. And I'm positive that through a collective effort involving, of course, government, municipalities, regulators, but also financial and corporate actors, and even the single citizens, right? We can make a difference in reducing inequalities and ultimately bridging the gender gap. If I may, my question to you, Diana, on the back of what you let's say picked up earlier on the, let's say, interaction of female participants in the local politics. I understand that having a female mayor is a big achievement for Bogota. But in your mind, what are the next challenges, right, and ambitions in terms of expanding female positions within the municipality's leadership?
Yana, wait a second, because I'm going to give the floor to Massimo so you can respond to both questions together and we'll wrap up a little bit. Thank you, Stefano, for bringing us a different perspective from well, you see the market. And I was looking for this word externality, and I couldn't find it this morning. So thank you, because of course you're an economist, so you know well about the externalities of the market. So I'm going to give the floor now to Massimo Reno. He's the president of Aeres Venezia, Italia, and of course, integral part of our Venice City Solutions. We couldn't do it without him. He helped us with even physically to bring. We have this wonderful gondola. He's been he's been parading the gondola around Venice with the SDGs on it, and also a friend. And he's always been with us in all the 4 editions of Venice City Solutions. Massimo, a te la parola. So please, tell us about your vision on inequalities in the city, and then if you have any questions for Diana in Bogotá. Over to you.
Bene, intanto grazie e buongiorno a tutte e a tutti per questa presenza, anche per questo invito alla Venice City Solution, che per me è un luogo speciale perché ha sempre aiutato la mia libertà, no, di alzare lo sguardo, no, sulla mia città, ma anche su tutti i continenti, no? E credo sia importante quello che veniva detto prima rispetto al tema del nuovo contratto sociale, per ripensare la città proprio a partire dagli esclusi, dagli scartati, da tutti quei modelli socio-economici che hanno aggredito, in particolare negli ultimi anni, con queste crisi sindemiche, l'uomo e la natura. Allora io porto il contributo, la nostra idea di inclusione sociale, culturale ed economica di Aeres Venezia per l'altra economia, dell'Associazione Bottega del Commercio Equo Italiane, di cui sono un presidente, e sono tutte soluzioni che provengono dagli sconfitti, no? Mi pare, ecco, di capire un po' dalle parole che sono emerse oggi, no? E anche da un'analisi di contesto, che l'importanza degli SDGs deriva dal fatto che questi hanno una forma, formano un'architettura, mi viene da dire, delle coscienze, occupano quello spazio di prossimità, no? Che è tra l'utopia impossibile e il quotidiano, la realtà che viviamo, infernale. C'è uno spazio per il cambiamento, da cui iniziare nei territori, ed è un terreno che è conteso almeno da 3 modelli, molto sinteticamente, di città, che si compenetrano e si confondono insieme. Allora c'è un modello di città che io chiamo la città infernale, che è quella dei senza lavoro, senza il diritto al futuro, e dove tutti gli esclusi sono espulsi e dove l'inclusione viene vietata, e lo sappiamo, dai muri, da atteggiamenti di indifferenza, di mancanza di lavoro, di salute, e a quale città corrisponde un comportamento che è spesso di indifferenza e di chiusura. E poi c'è la città dei bla bla bla. Questo è il regalo di Greta, dove gli esclusi sono dei pezzi di ricambio, a cui a cui devono corrispondere un modello di produzione che conosciamo, che è quello lineare, competitivo, individualista, dove bisogna distribuire, produrre, consumare e scartare, e dove i nostri corpi, no, sono quei pezzi di ricambio solo funzionali a quel sistema di crescita che conosciamo. E poi c'è la città invisibile, che ho visto ben rappresentata soprattutto dall'intervento da Bogotà, no? Dove gli esclusi invece sono i protagonisti di questo racconto, no? E che noi come dire, sentiamo di rappresentare, che vediamo rappresentati anche da tanti obiettivi degli SDGs, no? E delle tante interazioni esistenti. Noi quando abbiamo iniziato, e intendo dire noi quando abbiamo iniziato col commercio solidale 30-40 anni fa, ci dicevano che non si può fare economia con i poveri e che la povertà non si distribuisce, che noi bisognava prima creare la ricchezza e poi semmai dividerla. Ma oggi, a distanza di tanti anni, come dire, devo un po' smentire questa precondizione in cui noi abbiamo 905 gruppi di produttori certificati, lavoriamo in 62 paesi, ci sono più di 5 milioni di produttori e agricoltori certificati fair trade. Nel mondo ci sono 200 organizzazioni fair trade con più di 3.000 botteghe del commercio equo e 100.000 volontari. Solo in Italia, con la nostra associazione, noi siamo in 16 regioni con 5.000 volontari e ormai voi sapete che i prodotti dell'economia trasformativa e del commercio equo si trovano in più di 10.000 punti vendita e 185 aziende licenziatari. Quindi crediamo come dire, che il nostro modello di cura e di inclusione, no, che abbiamo messo nella città possa essere rilevato come un'importante unità di interpretazione di piccola scala, no? Che poi costituisce un processo di motivazione e di cambiamento su una scala più grande, intervenendo proprio nella rappresentazione, nella costruzione di un ordine anche simbolico, okay, che contrasta tutte le forme di quel tipo di realismo. Allora mi viene da dire che gli assi sui quali provare a ripensare le città possono essere di due tipi. Due assi e un elastico, direi. Il primo è che è necessario individuare azioni di contrasto a un dominio della prospettiva di una produzione della realtà come un effetto naturale di un certo sistema di sviluppo che fa emarginazione e esclusione sociale. Ecco. Il secondo, che noi dobbiamo cercare contestualmente, quindi un doppio sforzo, da un lato agire sulla realtà, contrapponendo tutti i contropoteri educativi, i governi femminili delle realtà, la dimensione della cura delle donne, no? L'agorà intesa come luogo, piazza di mercato contrapposta alle acropoli maschili. Ecco, questo contrasto del dominio della prospettiva potrebbe far emergere, fa emergere dei territori la ricchezza che viene dalle donne e dagli uomini stessi. E l'altro è anche cercare di rispondere però alla domanda contemporanea che viene sia sulla forma dell'URBS, della Civitas e della Polis, che sono di fatto le domande di senso, di cittadinanza, di forma dell'abitare e dei diritti dalla parte di chi è escluso. Ecco, io penso che le sfide per la città inclusiva del futuro, ci arriva forte il grido dei giovani, ci dicono di dire la verità, di agire subito, di dare ascolto loro in assemblea, ma devono prevedere quel nuovo contratto sociale che ha nella post-crescita come condizione di ripartenza del modello socio-economico, nel reddito di base incondizionato, nella diminuzione dell'orario lavorativo. Queste cose che sembrano in qualche modo così a volte radicali, in realtà fanno parte anche del messaggio recentemente fatto da Papa Francesco nell'ultima sua presentazione un mese fa ai movimenti, ai poeti sociali della terra. Quindi lo riprendiamo perché assieme, diciamo, agli SDGs e alle politiche delle città, ecco, ci pare importante costruire questa nuova teoria con le comunità solidali e pensando che dentro questi flussi, no, che emergono, che passano dentro la città, ci sia uno spazio possibile di cambiamento. Grazie.
Thank you so much, Massimo. As usual, just with your words, we could start speaking for 30 more hours, but this is the input for the first session in Venice. So we have 5 minutes to conclude, and I wanted to give 3 minutes to Diana for a final questions, and then we're going to give a final 2 minutes to our mayor, our super mayor Pilar to give us a final words. So Diana, 3 minutes, it's a lot, but just some of your last thoughts. Thank you.
So my last thoughts, thank you. So on the question of what do we need to increase female participation, right? We have a female mayor. She was the first female mayor of a city of Bogota. What comes next? I think something that comes next is really focusing on local leaderships and trying to pay attention to local leaderships and empowering and really accompanying women who are in very local positions of leadership to strengthen their participation, to create stronger links between women in other positions of power. Also, so I think that's important. Also, I think distributing more and more the idea of why having women in positions of power matters. These arguments, right, of Stefano saying countries with more women leadership have more aggressive climate policies, and those sorts of arguments, the OECD's arguments of how companies and countries increase their productivity by 30% if they have women in leadership positions. I think we need more of that, more of showing the positive impact. Unfortunately, we still need it. So unfortunately, we still need to make a point of why more women in positions of leadership. So I would just say those. So along the ideas of how to counter the models of reality and counter the old models, I think I always say that what we need to do is we need to learn more things, but we need to de-learn, like we need to unlearn other things, and we still need in many countries to unlearn machismo, like the chauvinism, right? And that, I think, goes with Massimo's second point of how do we counter the model of reality? How do we change paradigms? So I think all of this needs a lot of cultural change transformations, and I want to leave it there.
Thank you, Diana. It's also this indifference, no? Indifference versus care. People that doesn't care, that are indifferent. There was this, of course, Gramsci was talking about hating the indifference, odio gli indifferenti. Maybe we have to go back really to the 19th century now. Now Carla is laughing. Pilar, 2 minutes for your last thoughts. Thanks for being with us today as a mayor. Your last thoughts for us.
Jolín, qué manera de vibrar con un panel. Nunca lo diría, es que ni una obra de teatro ni un cine. Se han dicho tantas cosas, nos habéis dado tantas ideas. Estoy tan de acuerdo con todas que necesitaríamos, pues yo creo que 2 fines de semana entero para estar comentando las ideas. Pero yo creo que de todo lo que se ha hablado, que es imposible reflexionar y hacer un resumen de todo lo que se ha hablado, tenemos que tener en cuenta una idea, y es que para to rethink the city, para repensar nuestras ciudades, nuestros espacios, nuestras colectividades, no empezamos de cero. Ojalá empezáramos de cero y pudiéramos construir esa ciudad que se preocupa de todo. Yo creo que además Emilia, como siempre, ha dado en la clave. ¿Qué es esto de proporcionar servicios? Aquí no estamos para recoger las basuras, que también, no estamos para proporcionar alumbrado, que por supuesto que también, ¿no? Y para dar servicios. Aquí estamos para cuidar de cada uno de nuestros habitantes, de cada uno de nuestros vecinos, de cada una de nuestras vecinas. Y no solamente tenemos que pensar en la dependencia, en la discapacidad, en los infantes, en los menores que tenemos. Hay personas que pasan por un momento difícil a lo largo de su vida, pues una operación de un cáncer, personas que no tienen dependencia, pero oye, necesitan un tratamiento y tienen un hijo y a nadie más. ¿Y qué ocurre con ese hijo cuando tiene que estar ingresada para recibir ese tratamiento? Pues la ciudad tiene que preocuparse de esa familia, de esa persona, de esa madre. Madre soltera que tiene a su hijo. Bueno, estas son las cosas que nos tenemos que preocupar, que la pandemia nos ha enseñado, pero que todo no se acaba con la pandemia, sino que tenemos que continuar repensando. Como tengo 2 minutos y no tengo tiempo y me encantaría poder explicar muchas cosas más, deciros que esa es la necesidad, ¿no? Que las ciudades y las colectividades puedan cuidar de cada uno de nosotros, que lo hagan de una forma integral. Hay que dar soluciones para cada uno de esos momentos. A veces son momentos, instantes permanentes, otros, os he puesto un ejemplo, son momentos puntuales que se pueden superar, pero que en cualquier caso es importante que todos pensemos en todos, que es importante repartir el trabajo doméstico, que es importante pensar en masculino y en femenino, que necesitamos también dar pasos, no solamente con las personas que necesitan cuidados y con las que cuidan especialmente, sino que necesitamos incorporar a los hombres, que esas nuevas masculinidades que rompen con el patriarcado son las que queremos, que les aplaudimos, esos hombres que creen en la igualdad, que existen, que hay muchos que no, pero que existen y los necesitamos a nuestro lado en esta batalla, que alcen la voz bien fuerte, que necesitamos más mujeres electas, más mujeres en posiciones de liderazgo, porque ellas entienden perfectamente el discurso que estamos haciendo en este panel y las necesitamos a esas masculinidades diferentes, las del siglo XXI y las del futuro, pero sobre todo necesitamos esas mujeres en posición de poder decidir para poder cambiar todo esto, que tenemos esperanza, que creo que creemos, pero bueno, que el camino no va a ser fácil y lo reconocemos así. De manera que un grandísimo placer poder acompañaros, sobre todo poder aprender de tantas y tantas ideas que desde los diferentes espacios nos habéis transmitido. Y Diana, pues la verdad, desde Esplugas a Bogotá, un besazo porque nos encanta vuestro proyecto y aquí estamos para continuar colaborando.
We applaud, we applaud heavily. Thank you so much. Thank you to Diana for this inspiration, for being our city focus today. Thank you to Pilar, our alcaldesa. Thank you, Emilio, Camila. Thank you to Stefan and Massimo for this session. It's inspiring, and we are just launching Venice. So keep us with us. There is more to come. It has been a pleasure to moderate this session, and I leave the floor to Carla for the next one. Over to you.
Culture is the antidote for the secondary effects of the current and all crisis. Many of us have been involved in spontaneous cultural activities across the world. To mourn those that have left, to forge engagement and togetherness, to identify new energies, and to create new expressions that help us overcome limitations. During the pandemic, we have visited museums and orchestras have played from our homes. Balconies have lit up to imagine a new future as one humanity. Cities and territories around the world are cradles of culture, heritage, diversity, knowledge, and innovation. Culture makes people feel, dream, and create. Culture makes cities thrive. There are strong avenues that connect culture with the challenges humanity is facing. We need to address our relationship with nature and Mother Earth. We need to heal the conflicts of the past and build cities of peace. We need to be engaged to achieve gender equality, acknowledging that the beauty and pleasure that culture brings to us is critical for the welfare of our societies. Culture is essential for societies that care for all. We need to ensure that people everywhere discover cultural roots of all, create new expressions, share resources, enjoy creativity, protect the freedoms of all. This will guarantee the nexus between generations. United Cities and Local Governments, an equality-driven movement, is committed to a pact for the future powered by culture. Because culture connects people, because culture saves the planet. Then, governments need to protect and promote culture.
Welcome to the Red Session, the second session of this day. We are going to talk about culture that will be seen from different point of view, different aspects, with many representatives of different sectors. So let me first introduce the ones that are with us to talk about culture. We have Mr. Vladimir Amelier, Municipal Secretary of Planning of the city of La Paz in Bolivia. We have Shiki, Director of Municipal Foreign Affairs in Xi'an, China. We have Marta Llobet, Learning and Advocacy Officer, UCLG Committee on Culture, and Marta Radaelli, PhD Fellow of the Center for Studies on Russian Art, University of Ca' Foscari in Venice, and Elena Franco, an architect. So you can see that we have a different point of view, and I want to thank all our guests that are articulating with me this session. So the topic is quite difficult to be explained in 1 hour, but we will do our best. Culture can be declined as literature, science, photography, music, science. But if we go into the meaning of culture, we should think that the role of culture is the individual training education in the intellectual point of view. So as to say, the baggage of knowledge that we have, but not only. It's also a moral training, because with culture, you define the consciences, what you have experienced in all your life. And not only, because we should say that culture also means the complex of experiences that define our environment, our society, our age. So starting from this variety of things that we want to discuss today, we want to start from the point of view of a city, because this session wants to rethink at the cities through the SDGs value, through this cultural narrative. So let's go first to see how, from the point of view of a city, does it mean what is important talking about culture for the urban planning, for achieving and sustainable development, for engaging and binding the citizens to take part of the city life. So my pleasure is to give the floor and to do our first city focus with the city of Xi'an. The city of Xi'an in China is one of the local for action hub that we have, one of the most experienced local for action hub. And they are working on training and education, and they will tell us how is their experience. But before Xi'an, let's go to La Paz, Bolivia. We go in the South America, and we want to hear from direct experience what they are doing regarding culture, how culture is affecting their local agenda, their SDGs agenda. So, Mr. Vladimir Ameller, the floor is yours. We are listening from you, from your experience, and then we will give the floor to the respondent to provide questions as in the previous session.
Thank you. Muchísimas gracias y muy buenos días a todos. Un cordial saludo a los organizadores de este espacio, a la importancia de poder intercambiar criterios sobre elementos tan importantes y transversales en el cumplimiento de los SDG Cities como la cultura. Creemos que la cultura, sin lugar a duda, es un elemento fundamental, transversal, que nos permite no solamente de incorporar en los SDGs una visión de cultura de paz, sino también de generar una cultura de valores cívicos, de valores democráticos o valores ciudadanos que son tan importantes y son la base, la plataforma sobre la cual se puede consolidar cualquier modelo de gobernanza. En La Paz estamos haciendo los esfuerzos necesarios para poder transversalizar este elemento cultural a través de otros que tienen que ver fundamentalmente con la cultura de la no pobreza, la cultura del hambre cero. ¿Por qué no hablar de la cultura de la salud y el bienestar, de la adecuada nutrición, de la cultura de una educación de calidad, de la cultura de una igualdad de género, de la cultura de mejores servicios básicos y seguros, de una cultura de trabajo decente y digno, de una cultura tan necesaria de innovación, de una cultura de igualdad, de una cultura de consumo responsable? Quizá también, ¿por qué no hablar de una cultura de acción en favor del cambio climático? Lo que quiero expresar en síntesis es que las aristas, las dimensiones de la cultura son absolutamente múltiples y creo que radica y va a radicar en los gestores públicos, en los que toman decisiones en cada una de las ciudades, la posibilidad de incorporar, consolidar y trabajar hasta arraigar estos elementos en los modelos de gestión de grandes ciudades. Sin lugar a duda, este es un trabajo largo, no es sencillo, porque al hablar de valores, al hablar de cultura, son elementos que toman largos periodos, son elementos de lento desarrollo, pero al mismo tiempo que necesitan un enfoque sistémico, ¿no? De trabajar simultáneamente muchos actores, muchos temas sobre un conjunto de intervenciones muy bien focalizadas que logren, ojalá, en el corto plazo, un mayor impacto. En ese sentido, para nosotros, para La Paz, para el gobierno municipal, es un privilegio poder compartir con ustedes algunos criterios y poder ponderar la necesidad de transversalizar el elemento cultural en todo lo que refiere al cumplimiento de metas en ciudades, pero también fundamentalmente a la formulación y a la construcción de verdaderas y genuinas políticas públicas en favor de los ciudadanos. Muchísimas gracias.
Interesting to see how the city of La Paz is declining all the SDGs under the big issue of culture. And this means a lot, because it means that all the political activity are really focused on the 2030 agenda. So just as I was saying before, let's move to Xi'an, the city of Xi'an. It is one of our local for action hub. They decline this kind of culture as a powerful tool to educate and train the new generation to new values. I would like to listen from Mr. Shiki about their experience, because this is a moment where we share. We are in a hub, so it's good to share our experience and maybe to think about the questions to propose to the city of La Paz. Mr. Ki, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Hala, dear Secretary General MBSIs and Kalare, and dear colleagues, friends. It gives me great pleasure to meet you virtually. Xi'an's attendance at last year's VeniceCitySolutions was a fresh memory, actually. The meeting co-hosted by the UCLG, ARCCRE UN Habitat, UNDP, and UN SDG Action Campaign was a great success. All witnessed that the meetings enjoys more popularity, which is concrete proof that the local actions are getting increased attention. Culture is a fundamental factor in our daily lives. It integrates many aspects of social activities, just like Khaled said, such as education, tourism, science, politics, economy, and so on. During the decade of action, culture could be and must be the driving force for implementing the SDGs. Since the culture and SDGs are closely connected with the local actions. Moreover, while highlighting culture's unique charm, we should also encourage the diversity and inclusion of culture. It enables people worldwide to reach consensus and work together to promote the realization of the global agenda. Xi'an, a city with a 3,100-year history, runs through ancient and modern times. At present, Xi'an has promoted local economic development through the integration of culture and tourism, and effectively connected agriculture, education, sports, technology, and other related industries with the culture and tourism resources to enhance employment and improve people's livelihood. Now, I will share with you the role of culture in promoting sustainable development with two cooperative projects between Xi'an and UCLG. First, Xi'an, with rich higher education resources and cultural advantages, has implemented the Local for Action Hub program. We promote youth education and dialogue to inject more vitality into the realization of sustainable development. To be more specific, Xi'an established the UCLG Aspect Talent Training Program, serving as a platform for education exchanges among government officials, aims to promote the economic development and prosperity of the Asia-Pacific region. Xi'an also held global civil servant short-term training workshop to inspire young officials' attention in SDGs and thus improve governance abilities. Another project is that relying on the practical practice and initiatives launched by the University Alliance and the global networks of UCLG, Xi'an is going to promote sustainable development goals on a broader scale. Second, Xi'an has localized the UCLG Aspect Tourism Committee in this September. This initiative promotes exchanges and mutual understanding among civilizations, further deepen friendship and practical cooperation among Xi'an and global tourist cities, and form a joint force to promote the development and prosperity of the tourism industry. Through the Tourism Committee, we look forward to accelerating the implementation of SDGs, especially goals in 1, 8, 9, 10, 11, 15, and 16. Therefore, I sincerely welcome the cities to join the Tourism Committee to work together on the recovery and prosperity of the tourism industry. Also, next Thursday, 7 Keys workshop enhancing sustainable development by culture will be held in Xi'an and UCLG Culture Committee, joined by local experts to discover the relations between the culture and SDGs from the local perspectives. I believe it will be an interesting event. In conclusion, I want to highlight that culture is the fourth pillar of the sustainable development. It can help cities to raise awareness, nurture dialogues, and facilitate mutual understanding. We need to work together to pursue the localization of SDGs at all levels. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Listening from this inspiring experience of the city of Xi'an, I would like to ask to the city of La Paz. Mr. Vladimir was saying before that any change needs time. So we need to invest with a vision, with a period of time. And the city of Xi'an is talking about training the new generation on these issues, on this value. So my question to Mr. Vladimir is, are you going to invest, or what is your feeling about making more active in the sustainability world the new generation, providing a new culture for the next generation?
Gracias por la pregunta. Posiblemente después del COVID y toda la pandemia como la estamos viviendo y experimentando, sea imprescindible cambiar algunos paradigmas de dónde vamos a concentrar o dónde vamos a destinar nuestros mayores esfuerzos. Sin lugar a duda, la pandemia nos ha demostrado de que tenemos que ser mucho más veloces en la toma de decisiones y poder incorporarnos rápidamente y con bastante resiliencia al cambio tecnológico y a la automatización de procesos. Los que estamos tomando decisiones en materia pública no estamos ajenos a esta marcha forzada. Al contrario, creo que nuestra mayor oportunidad radica en volcar todos nuestros esfuerzos de gestión pública a generar mecanismos de adaptación rápida a las nuevas orientaciones que el mundo tiene post pandemia. En ese sentido, las ciudades, como agentes de contención, como agentes de resolución de las problemáticas más importantes en materia de empleo, ingresos, innovación, productividad, competitividad, van a requerir, sin lugar a duda, entre sus máximos desafíos, adaptarse y ajustarse a un contexto mucho más rápido y vertiginoso, donde definitivamente la competencia, la disputa por mejores mercados, mejores ingresos, mejores posicionamientos en materias de interés ciudadano, va a ser el gran desafío de las ciudades. Gracias.
I would like also to ask to the city of Xi'an, because we have two different cities representing our world, China and the South America. Do you think that this change of cultural approach that we have in the cities management needs a very participative process? The question is, do you think that you could achieve this big change without the other stakeholders? I mean, the third sectors, the world of research, the civil society organization. What's your idea about this? Do you need to make a good partnership with all the actors that are dealing in the territory, or just the cities can make it by themselves? Mr. Shiki, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. I believe the cultural rights actually should belong to the people. So every stakeholders or the organizers or the partners in the city in the different levels should be involved, because people has to enjoy the cultural rights, and the cultural rights should be protected and should be offered by the different levels of the organizations. For example, we need private libraries, theaters, and all kinds of different activities we will organize or will offer to our citizens in order to achieve this kind of the cultural diversity or the cultural protection, especially in this COVID situation. So I do believe city governments definitely will work with the different enterprises and other organizations to protect the people's cultural rights. Thank you.
I really think that Xi'an is an example of partnership in this. And talking about partnership and community, I would like to give the floor right now to Marta Llobet, that is Learning and Advocacy Officer of the UCLG Committee on Culture. The committee is working on many policies and is providing important declaration. So I would like to hear from Marta not only what is going on in the committee, but also if she wants also to ask a question to the city of La Paz or maybe Xi'an. Marta, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Carla. It's a pleasure to be in this session. Thank you for this opportunity. Yes, indeed. Since we are here discussing SDG solutions to rethink cities and the role of culture in this endeavor, I think it is very important to bring to this conversation a document and also a process that can really make a difference in this sense. And this is the Izmir Declaration. Culture shapes the future of humanity. The Izmir Declaration is the main outcome of the UCLG Culture Summit that took place in Izmir and online in September this year. And the summit, as you may know, is the main meeting point at global level for cities, local governments, and other stakeholders that are committed to culture and sustainable development. But the Izmir Declaration is not only the main outcome of this summit, it is also a substantial contribution to the UCLG Pact for the Future of Humanity, for the people, for the planet, and for the government, which is to be adopted at the 7th UCLG World Congress next year in Daejeon. So I would like to be concrete and highlight 3 aspects of this declaration, which I think are really well aligned with the issues we are discussing here. And the first of all is that culture is considered in the declaration as a solution and the key to design and promote solutions for current urban challenges. This idea is also central in the Rome Charter on the right to participate fully and freely in the cultural life of communities. The Rome Charter, UCLG and the City of Rome launched it last year. So social and gender equality, solidarity, climate, health, and resilience, among others, are included in the declaration as global key challenges that the new policies based on cultural rights can tackle successfully. And we've seen a very inspiring video at the beginning of this session in this regard, produced by UCLG and the Izmir municipality, because culture has to do with values, as Carla, you were saying, aspirations, and the complex ideas that shape societies and the future. In this regard, the Izmir Declaration invites all cities and local governments to place culture at the center of local development and to take into consideration the practical tools and programs that we, the UCLG Culture Committee, have elaborated, such as the Culture 21 Lab and the new 7 Keys program, which integrates the cultural dimension in the localization of the SDGs and has recently been implemented by the cities of Bulawayo, Puerto de la Cruz, Lisbon, and by Xi'an next week, as Shiki was saying. We are very happy to count with Xi'an next week. So these are very practical tools that can be really helpful for cities. And the second aspect is the need to have a standalone culture goal that will be SDG 18 to ensure that the forthcoming development agendas are really for people, for the planet, and for the government. The Izmir Declaration invites the UN High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development to engage in a dialogue with the global cultural actors so that a dedicated goal on culture becomes a reality as soon as possible. Since a cultural goal is the best way to assume responsibilities and to empower actors as well. The Izmir Declaration also invites UNESCO to design an ambitious Mondiacult 2022 or Mondiacult plus 40. And how? I am reading a brief excerpt. Inviting all actors to actively participate to the conversation and aiming at allowing the international and national frames of cultural policies to be adapted to the challenges of the 21st century. These frames could closely relate cultural rights and sustainable development and consolidate the image of culture as the 4th dimension of sustainable development on an equal basis to the economic, social, and environmental pillars. And it is also recalled that Bondiacul 2022, and this is very important, could set new adequate protection standards for cultural workers and artists. And the third aspect, I will be very brief, is a new concept of circular culture composed by harmony with nature, harmony with the past, harmony with each other, and harmony with change. This new concept that has to be further developed can help tackle the economic and environmental crisis that we are facing, with perspectives that can open a new type of cooperation towards better cities for all. And I will leave it here for the moment. And I was thinking actually of the same question that you asked to Shiki before, that how cities are planning to engage all actors, but perhaps I would focus on a specific aspect of this theme, this issue, and it is how cities can promote a dialogue between different departments within the city council, within urban planning, environment, economy, education, because culture, as we've seen, it is embedded in each of the SDGs, because culture is society, it is us, right? So that would be my question. Thank you.
I will ask Xian and La Paz to reply to this question. Please, Mr. Shiki, the floor is yours.
Mata, thank you for your question. Good to see you again. Indeed, it's actually for Xian, take Xian as an example, actually Xian put culture as a very, very important position. This is why we can use culture to build different connections with the different departments in the city governments. For example, with the urban planning departments or foreign affairs office, in my office, it's very easy because in a whole like 5 years plans, culture has been written in the Xian's designing planning, and also it is one of the fundamental industry or fundamental factors we need to pay attention. So this is for us, it is not very difficult for us to use culture to combine with different stakeholders or departments in our city. You know, Xi'an has like 3,100 years cities as a city, and also 1,100 years as a capital in China. So there are plenty of cultural resources in China, and the culture is written in the gene in the Xi'an citizens. So every people here respect the culture, and we love to protect the culture and put the culture in the very important position. So any policy made related to the culture will be designed carefully, and will be, you know, increase the investment, also put the culture to combine with the different industries or different areas. It is very easy to do. So we'll make a lot of policies actually related to the culture. This is what we do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vladimir, do you want to reply?
Sí, gracias. Creo que es imposible gestionar una ciudad si no tenemos una adecuada lectura de lo que acontece en ella. Y la ciudad es un conjunto de fuerzas donde no solamente intervienen los actores gubernamentales, sino un conjunto de actores que definitivamente tiene una cultura política, en este caso, que si no es adecuadamente incorporada, adecuadamente leída, cualquier intervención pública, cualquier iniciativa, cualquier proyecto, por mejor concebido que esté, va a ser muy difícil que pueda tener algún impacto o algún tipo de incidencia en las ciudades. Por ello creo que en La Paz hemos hecho fuertes ejercicios de participación reconociendo las heterogeneidades. Una ciudad no es un conjunto homogéneo. Una ciudad es un conjunto de muchos mosaicos que se juntan y que forman un crisol. Y ese crisol necesita tener políticas diferenciadas. Necesita incorporar elementos intangibles que tengan que ver posiblemente con las tradiciones, tengan que ver con las creencias, que tengan que ver para entender en cierto sector de la ciudad cómo se relacionan, cómo dialogan, cómo llegan a consensos. Y cuando no lo hacen, ¿de qué forma manejan los disensos, los desacuerdos? Creo que esa es una de las virtudes más importantes de este eje, porque nos permite leer lo invisible y ajustarnos a ese contexto heterogéneo para poder brindar las mejores condiciones que faciliten el aterrizaje de cualquier iniciativa en alianza con actores territoriales, con actores privados. Por ello considero que La Paz hace un ejercicio permanente en este camino de aprendizaje de cómo incorporar dimensiones múltiples al desarrollo de una ciudad. Este es un desafío y una asignatura, diría yo, todavía en desarrollo para nosotros, pero tengan la certeza de que estamos absolutamente convencidos de que hacer una adecuada lectura de estos elementos que tienen que ver con la cultura de las ciudades va a evitar que nuestras intervenciones hagan daño o que no tengan el impacto que esperábamos. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Yes, of course, I totally agree with all what has been said, because we have this meaning of culture that can be really declinated in many things, and we think that culture is a really cross-cutting SDGs. Maybe we need a specific one that we can really achieve and put on the base of the agenda. And at the same time, the real life of the city policies need to be seen as one, as a whole. So this is a challenge that we have in front of us. I know that Emilia wants to take the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, Carla. Very, very inspiring inputs from all the presenters, of course. But what I haven't really heard yet, or maybe not enough, is the importance of youth in culture, of how young people need to help us understand culture also, not as a heritage issue, not as something that we need to preserve, but as something that we need to allow to evolve, to create, that can put diversity as a resource of society. Because very often, let's face it, culture has been an obstacle for equality. In the case of women, it's certainly so. Culture is sometimes also used as a pretext not to change things. And I think it's very relevant for our community, for this community that is coming here today, to take that into account and to put youth at the center and to see culture as that glue that allows us to transform. So I was wondering how La Paz and Xi'an are making sure that that happens. I know that the Local for Action Hub of Xi'an has youth at the center, but how do we make them participate? How do we make sure that they become the kind of political actors that can allow us to see culture evolving? That's a thought that I keep with me, and that I think if we want to scale up in localization will be very relevant. Also for that stand-alone goal and for culture as fourth pillar of development. Thank you, Carla.
Let's see if Xi'an or La Paz want to reply to Emilia. Or in the meantime, while we are waiting for them, let's provide this question to the next guest we have. We are here hosted by XAR, the Center Study on Russian Art of Ca' Foscari University. And let me thank in the person of Professor Silvia Burini for this opportunity. But with us, there is Marta Radelli, PhD Fellow of the Center. They are working on visual arts, on arts in general. So let's see, also from her perspective, young perspective, how SDGs can influence your center, your project, your experience. Marta, the floor is yours. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you, everyone. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, the organizer. It's a real pleasure, and I'm really honored to be here. So I think that now what I will say will also answer Emilia's question, because actually, so first of all, let me introduce what the Center for Studies in Russian Art does. So it is actually the first center in Italy that is focused on the promotion and promulgation of the historical, artistic and cultural heritage of Russia. So we organize art exhibitions, festivals of cinema, of music, and readings, events, and so on and so forth. So many activities. But the most important thing for me is that all the events we organize are free and open to the public. So beside the fact that we are a center inside Ca' Foscari University of Venice, our events are open to everyone, to the whole city, that participate really with great enthusiasm. So I think that this is a relevant point in what we do. But so as of course, clearly, as we are a center inside Ca' Foscari University of Venice, one of our major commitments is education and educational scopes. But we are not, so the directors, Professor Silvia Burini and Professor Giuseppe Barbieri, of course, they give lectures at a university as professor, but also the center involve students at different levels in all his activities. So as I say, different levels. So there are PhD students like me that are involved in activities of the scientific secretariat, which I am a part of, but also students that carry out their curricular internships, but also high school students that collaborate with the center for their PCTO, that are the school and work programs that we have here in Italy. So this is, of course, a relevant point for the question you pose, because young people are really involved practically in our activities, and I think this is really something important also from my perspective, as I already, it's some years that I am part of XAR, and I have participated in many different levels of the center activities. And so in this perspective also of among the educational scopes of the center, we have also, so Professor Burini and Professor Barbieri have created a new project that is, it is called Sustainable Art. So we are identifying some figures in the artistic contemporary scene that are creating works of art that are focused on how we are, you know, for sure we are dissipating our resources, and we will show the works of art that they are creating, that they have created in an exhibition that will be showed in this spring during the period of Biennale. And this will will allow the public, as I said, so not only students and professors that are involved, that are from Ca' Foscari University, but also the public that comes from the whole city, from the whole world, since we are in Venice. And it will allow the public to visualize and really perceive it will raise awareness and empower actions to change things from the whole, I would say, all the SDGs major problematics. So, and also in this project, we will involve practically, as I said, all the students, so high school students and PhD students, and of course undergraduate students from Ca' Foscari University to collaborate practically. So they will also have the opportunity to give their to share their opinion, and also to let us show their point of view and their experience. So maybe also my experience, as I can be considered among the young people that will collaborate. And so, yes, I think I've answered maybe the question.
Of course, Marta, thank you very much. We have right now the point of view of the cities. We heard a point of view of the community, the UCLG community, now in university. So let's hear also the point of view of the urban planning. We were thinking, Emilia, you said cultural heritage. We must be sure that culture couldn't mean that we are not developing, that we are blocking in the past. But also cultural heritage could mean that culture is not just economic or environmental sustainability. It's also social sustainability. So from what we heard from the previous session, that we have the invisibles in the cities that needs to be protected, how culture can affect this field. I would like to hear the point of view of an architect. We have with us Elena Franco from Torino, Italy. Elena, what's your experience on SDGs? What's your point of view about culture and SDGs? Can we combine it? It's up to you. Elena, thank you.
Grazie Carla, grazie a tutti per l'opportunità di essere qui con voi oggi e per le interessantissime relazioni e gli interessanti spunti del pomeriggio. Io sono un architetto e mi occupo di città e del territorio, ma in particolar modo ultimamente mi occupo di arte e cultura come risorse per la cura, per la promozione della salute e per la costruzione di equità e qualità sociale. Quindi questo è il punto di vista che vorrei condividere con voi oggi. In particolare dal 2012 sto lavorando sul tema della relazione fra cura e città attraverso un progetto culturale che usa le arti visive, in particolare la fotografia, in una ricerca artistica dal titolo Ospitaglia, che ha favorito la nascita di una rete non formale di una cinquantina di enti europei che si occupano di luoghi della cura. Questi luoghi possono essere degli ospedali, possono essere stati degli ospedali e ora essere dei centri culturali, dei luoghi dove si fa formazione, dei luoghi dove si fa cultura perché magari sono diventati musei. Ecco, quindi la relazione fra cultura e salute è al centro di questo mio lavoro. Quindi l'obiettivo dell'Agenda 2030, che è più al centro di questa riflessione, è il numero 3, salute e benessere, anche se comunque anche l'obiettivo 11, città e comunità sostenibili, è comunque sempre al centro di qualsiasi lavoro che coinvolga degli architetti e degli urbanisti. I luoghi della cura sono luoghi di comunità, per questo ci interessano, perché hanno forti legami con la città e con i cittadini. E oggi, dato il tema della sessione a cui partecipiamo, volevo raccontarvi 2 iniziative specifiche che in questo momento in Italia stanno, diciamo, portando avanti, stimolando un dibattito su cultura e salute. La prima iniziativa è la nascita nel marzo del 2020, quindi in piena pandemia da Covid-19, di un centro di competenze che si chiama Cultural Welfare Center, che è nato su iniziativa di Caterina Seia e di un gruppo di 10 esperti, e io faccio parte della Knowledge Community di questo centro, che partendo da un report del 2019 dell'Organizzazione Mondiale della Sanità relativo al valore delle arti e della cultura sul benessere e per la salute, vuole nutrire le politiche che mettono in atto appunto questa visione che vede cultura e arti insieme per il benessere e la salute. Proprio oggi alle 5 partirà la prima lezione di un master che durerà per un anno dedicato a cultura e salute con una sessantina di persone da tutta Italia provenienti dal mondo culturale, dal mondo sanitario, decisori pubblici che tutti insieme lavoreranno su questo tema, quindi su come l'SDG 3 potrà costruire delle città per il futuro più attente al benessere. E infine la seconda esperienza invece è un altro centro studi, che è il centro studi per le Medical Humanities dell'ospedale di Alessandria, una città di 90.000 abitanti nel nord del Piemonte, che ha un centro studi di competenze diverse. Qui mi rifaccio alla Paz che diceva la trasversalità è importante. In questo centro studi lavorano architetti come me, medici, psicologi, comunicatori, giuristi, tutti insieme per focalizzare su quello che è il valore della cultura per curare le nostre città. E vi cito, chiudo con questo, un lavoro che è stato fatto con questo centro studi su tutto il patrimonio sanitario della città, che è un patrimonio del Novecento di un architetto che si chiama Ignazio Gardella. Ecco, questo patrimonio è stato valorizzato per coinvolgere i cittadini insieme agli operatori dell'ospedale per fare della salute, insomma, un elemento importante nella costruzione della città, questo patrimonio è stato oggetto di una candidatura a un'iniziativa del Fondo per l'Ambiente italiano e sono state raccolte 30.000 firme l'anno scorso che hanno permesso di lanciare il restauro di una parte di questo patrimonio che è la chiesa dell'ospedale per farne un centro proprio di cultura e salute a servizio di tutta la città. Questo per parlare di nuovo di come coinvolgere i cittadini, farli sentire partecipi, come coinvolgere tutte le varie componenti della città per renderli partecipi di un percorso culturale. Quindi chiudo appunto dicendo che anche dal mio punto di vista è molto importante che sia il pubblico che il privato e i cittadini tutti siano coinvolti in questi processi, le imprese, tutti insieme verso un obiettivo di crescita della città. Grazie.
Thank you, Elena, for these really interesting projects that you are following. And I was listening and thinking that in this panel, in this session, we have heard a different perspective, but we cannot forget that we don't have right now with us, but we should cite also the private sector, because we have a great efforts coming from, for example, the creative cultural industries that are doing a lot of things in these fields and helping the community to follow the SDGs and the principle that we are talking right now as the cultural values. I was thinking that if we think at the production, we are here with this fantastic production by UCLG. I was wondering that right now we have a lot of companies that are all electric, for example. We have TV series that are electric, that are in partnership between different countries in the world. I will cite Romulus, that is a TV series, but Eco Movie is another production that we have in Italy that is going all electric. But let's think also visual art. We have street artists that have projects like Beyond Walls, for example, that is using 100% biodegradable sprays. Or just to change the culture, to use the visual art to send messages. Or we have street artists that are using panels, absorbent, to fight the air pollution. Or if we go in the music field, we have companies around the world that are investing in the SDGs, and they produce culture. I was really interested. There is a company that is organizing a music tour of big bands like Maroon 5, Red Hot Chili Pepper, that are going really in a sustainable way. This company is in Portland, in USA. The name is Reverb, but they're using eco-villages. They are using compost waste. They are using electric vehicles. Those are important messages that can really empower and influence also the young generation. And in Europe, we have also music festivals like the DGTL of Amsterdam. That's a circular festival. So I think going back to university, we have Marta here. From your point of view, those messages are well heard by the young generation, or we need to change the language? Are these experiences enough to make the movement of the young generation? What we need to do from your point of view? Marta, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Carla. So I think that I see, from my perspective, that big efforts are developing. So I think that we are going the right way now. So for sure, I do believe that institutions should listen more to young people. It may seem banal, but I think it is really so. Sometimes institutions should really just listen to the young voices. And in this respect, I would also, returning also to the element of the involvement of people, to the involvement of city in the events, I would also like to recall an event organized also by Professor Burini and Angela Bianco. It is called Art Night. It is the night of art in the city of Venice, in which the major institutions of the city are open to the public, organize events specifically to involve people, to involve young people. It is an event that really involves young people with that also can propose some events, and organizer usually find a space for them. So it is really, I would say a stage also where they can raise their voices, and I think this is really important.
So we are going in the right direction. Emilia.
Yes, when we were at the very heart of the pandemic, and when the world stopped, literally, and our cities were empty, and we couldn't leave the house, art, music, culture, online exhibitions kept us connected and alive. I remember my neighbors coming out at 8 o'clock to applaud to the medical care crews, but also to play music, to laugh with each other, to create a small theater plays. When we saw that, our political leadership said and declared culture as the antidote to the negative effects of the pandemic at social level. And I think that's exactly how we need to take it. Not only in respect to the pandemic, but in respect to the climate crisis, in respect to the achievement of our joint agenda of the SDGs. It's not that culture can contribute to achieve the SDGs, but that it is part and parcel of the type of world that we want to have if we achieve the SDGs, that make the SDGs necessary. So I think that's the way that we need to understand it. And I really like what you said, and I am sorry that we don't have them represented here, because indeed you have all these artists that are greatly suffering the economic and social crisis because they have not been able to perform. And closing down theaters and museums and concerts is not just not allowing people to enjoy, but it has a much greater impact. So I think there is a role that local and regional governments need to play, that the public institutions need to play, actually, to address the needs of this sector. And that's why we would like to see this stand-alone goal on culture, where this sector, that from my perspective is an essential sector, a new essential, is taken care of as also a public service. Many cities around the world are taking care of their artists, but I think more can be done, and the international community should put them also at the center of care societies. I'm certain of this, yes.
I totally agree with you, Emilia, and I think that this could be the right conclusion of the session. Having one SDGs, the cultural one, that will define us and for what we are and what we want as a community. So I think that as local authorities, but also in participation with all the many stakeholders that were with us today and are in the city life, we need to go for these targets. So right now we are closing the second session. This is our first day of Venice City Solutions. What we can say is thanking you so much for staying with us, and let's stay tuned, because tomorrow we have 2 other fantastic sessions with other guests and moderators. So don't miss what it will be our program tomorrow, and thank you again for staying with us.
Culture is the antidote for the secondary effects of the current and all crisis. Many of us have been involved in spontaneous cultural activities across the world. To mourn those that have left, to forge engagement and togetherness, to identify new energies, and to create new expressions that help us overcome limitations. During the pandemic, we have visited museums and orchestras have played from our homes. Balconies have lit up to imagine a new future as one humanity. Cities and territories around the world are cradles of culture, heritage, diversity, knowledge, and innovation. Culture makes people feel, dream, and create. Culture makes cities thrive. There are strong avenues that connect culture with the challenges humanity is facing. We need to address our relationship with nature and Mother Earth. We need to heal the conflicts of the past and build cities of peace. We need to be engaged to achieve gender equality. Acknowledging that the beauty and pleasure that culture brings to us is critical for the welfare of our societies. Culture is essential for societies that care for all. We need to ensure that people everywhere discover cultural roots of all, create new expressions, share resources, enjoy creativity, protect the freedoms of all. This will guarantee the nexus between generations. United Cities and Local Governments, an equality-driven movement, is committed to a pact for the future, powered by culture. Because culture connects people, because culture saves the planet. Then, governments need to protect and promote culture.